Welcome back, and joining us on the show now is Vandana Hari. She's founder and CEO at Vanda Insights. Vandana, hi, good to have you. And it was some morning with so many statements coming in from various agencies and then, of course, the countries, spokespersons, etc. And we've seen some settling in case of crude prices happen right now. What do you make of what happened in the morning? And would you say that the nerves are really frayed? Because whatever we hear, there is a sentiment impact.
That's it, Manisha. I think you've summed up everything. You've left very little for me to say. Indeed, what a morning, a major jolt through the crude markets. And we saw Brent at one point was more than 4% higher than Thursday's settlement. And, that was a very natural, it was a knee-jerk reaction from the market, but a very natural reaction in the current circumstances because, look, the tensions between Israel and Iran are the highest possibly that any one of us have seen in our lifetimes, right? And as much as both the sides have been saying they do not want to escalate the situation further, there's also been quite a bit of rhetoric being exchanged from both the sides. So it's entirely believable when you see news reports, headlines, confirmed or not, saying that there have been explosions in Iran, some explosions heard in Syria and Iraq. It's easy to believe that these are missiles being fired from Israel. But, fast forward a few hours and things have calmed down considerably. So at one point, Brent was touching $91 this morning. Now it's around $88 a barrel. And the reason for that is that some more details have emerged beyond the first few headlines, which suggests that either if it was indeed an Israeli attack, then again, it was, I would say, without comparing it completely to what Iran did last weekend, but perhaps again symbolic, designed to show a retaliation, but not cause damage. And, Iranian media and Iranian leaders have been doing their bit to calm everything down and say that, no danger has been done. It's like business as usual, go about your daily lives. So where that leaves oil is really, on tenterhooks, Manisha, jittery, nervous. I don't think this sort of volatility, fragility is going to end anytime soon.
But Vandana, would you say that we've seen a lot of maturity, even responsibility when responsive nature when it comes to Iran and Israel in some way, and absolutely for the crude traders here, because we did see that premium build up, but that's come off and we didn't see markets break down in some sense.
Yeah, that's an interesting point, Manisha. Is it just crisis fatigue happening in the oil markets, or as you say, I'd like to believe that perhaps the oil market has finally, participants have become more mature, doing more considered assessment. So you will still get the kind of knee-jerk reactions that we saw this morning, right? I think that's inevitable. But the fact that crude, and this is being increasingly talked about even outside the oil markets, that oil is not, it doesn't go into panic mode as such, because panic mode would have meant you hear a headline about a missile flying anywhere in the Middle East and crude starts racing towards 100. So, $5, $10 up and down, but that's not happening. And I suppose in some ways, Manisha, this is a relief factor, isn't it?
It is, sure. But on the other side, while of course geopolitics is something that we will continue to look at, Vandana, but we also have seen sanctions come in on Venezuela and Iran. Would you say the markets have priced that in?
So there's nothing to price in, Manisha. There's both those sanctions, and I've looked closely at the wordings from the U.S. Treasury, the Office of Foreign Assets Control in the U.S., and they have been very, very careful. First of all, what is relevant to Venezuelan production, most relevant to the increase in Venezuelan production that we've seen of about 100,000 barrels per day, is Chevron's presence there. That is not being affected. So we need to be very clear about that. Chevron is in that country producing in a joint venture with PDVSA under a completely different license that remains unaffected. Chevron will continue buying, taking Venezuelan crude back into the U.S. That's also very important for the American refiners. Iran, the US has been very, very careful to not touch the energy sector, not just oil, but energy sector of Iran. The latest round of sanctions announced yesterday are very specifically targeted towards the Revolutionary Guard and the Iranian Defense Ministry, and basically technology that allows Iran to produce missiles and drones, the kinds that they used to attack Israel last Saturday. So again, I do not expect Iranian production or exports to be affected at all.
Okay. Having said that, and with the kind of scenario that we are living in right now, where data and China and interest rate cuts, a conversation, and of course geopolitics, there's just so much to watch out, and there's as much a trader can do, and a difficult one. But where do you see the crude prices moving from here on? Is there a range that you're looking at in the first half, second half, quarter to quarter? How are you working with it?
So I think the geopolitical premium in crude right now, I would say if you look at $90 Brent, it's easily $12 to $15 a barrel. I really don't see that receding much. So what we have seen over the past fortnight or so, amidst heightened tensions between Iran and Israel, has been, plus minus $3-4 range. A substantial pullback will really need some sort of a ceasefire agreement, some temporary rapprochement in Gaza, and then followed by a more enduring, peace deal over there. And I don't know how many months or even years that's going to take. So that premium remains intact. There's a bit of premium on account of the heightened warfare between Ukraine and Russia as well. So we've seen Ukrainian drone strikes against Russian refineries take close to 800,000 barrels per day of Russian refining capacity, put it out of commission temporarily. So that remains in place. So, whether crude Brent next settles closer to in the 75 to 80 band or remains closer to 85 to 90, I think it's all a function of what happens to these two wars.
Okay, well, definitely a lot of moving parts, Vandana as well as Manisha. Thank you very much for joining in and taking us through that conversation. Well, on that note, we need to wrap up with the news that the Nifty is